Hi again, subscribers, and welcome to let me check something up here. Welcome to another video here at Mad About Madeira. And today's video, let me just show my wife back here. Today's video, or tonight's video, I should say, it's going to be about a topic that deals more with Madeirans themselves. Not that I know much about the daily workings of Madeira, but I think I have an idea about certain things that may be going on that I don't think a lot of people who are visiting the island or even visiting Portugal who may necessarily think about these type of things. So as you can tell, I hate the reflection here and the lighting, but as you would notice, on this channel, let me see something here. On this channel, what we basically do, we're not exactly like a lot of the other videos that you see about Madeira, where it's more a little bit more touristy. It's more about what to do in Madeira or the cost of living in Madeira and so forth. We're probably going to get to that when we eventually move there, and hopefully sooner than later. But for right now, these are just more or less my musings, my observations, and things that I think about. So it's a little bit more, I don't know what term to use, but it's a little bit more just practical, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, here's what I want to talk about. And it's funny, I am not from Madeira, even though, as you know by now, we have links to the island, but this topic actually hits close to home because I can relate. So, let me see where I should start. Let me go back to this. Right now, Portugal has become very popular. It's trending. So, because of the pandemic, as a lot of people know, and because of working remotely, a lot of Americans became aware of Portugal. Digital nomads. A lot of people became very familiar with it as a place to go and retire. So it became very popular on the American side. Prior to that, you may have a few straggling Americans here and there, maybe a couple thousand, maybe not even that much, because it's on the other side of the world. And when Americans tend to think of Europe, they tend to think more France. They think of England. They think of Germany. Portugal, it was always kind of like an afterthought. But because of its somewhat easy process in terms of getting into the country, a lot of Americans are realizing, hey, that's a place to go. The one thing a lot of Americans look at is the cost of living. Generally speaking, it's lower than what it is here in the United States. And if you have American dollars, you can make it over there, and you can make that dollar stretch much further than you can here in the United States. So it's become very popular for that reason. So all of a sudden now, there have been a flood of Americans. The Europeans, the Western Europeans like the British, the Danes, folks from the Netherlands, they've always known about Portugal because it's pretty much in their neighborhood, the close proximity. But Americans, being way on the other side of the Atlantic, never really used to think about Portugal that much, but things have changed. So now it's becoming a popular destination for a lot of Americans. So as Americans are running over there now, a thought crossed my mind the other day after I came back from Madeira. And I'm like, wow, it's great, it's beautiful, I love the place, my wife found family there, our ancestry is from there, at least a part of our ancestry is from there, and it was like, great, 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 we'd like to go to move to Madeira and everything. But then a thought came to my mind, and I started thinking about the actual local people. And the reason why this thought came to mind, it's because I can relate to probably a feeling that some of them get. But before I get to that, let me give a little bit of a history of something here. On our first video that I made, a lot of people came in, hey, great video. I'm so glad you found your roots, welcome. The majority of people were very great, gracious in their compliments and everything about the video and welcoming us with open arms, even though they don't really know us personally. But there were a few people that came in, and some people have said that they were probably just trolls. I tend to think that they were trolls, yes, but they were actual real people. And you may not see the comments right now because I deleted most of them. I think I left a couple of them up there, but they actually came in out of nowhere threatening us, threatening me, basically saying, don't come to our island. We don't want you in our island. You're disrespecting our island by wanting to come to our island. So notice, they're saying that the disrespect is not because I said anything bad about Madeira. I didn't say anything negative about Madeira. The threat was, or the disrespect in their estimation, was me daring, me having the audacity to say that I would love to move to Madeira. They didn't want me there. Now, they didn't come out and say anything about my color. It sounded like they were speaking in general. I could be wrong because I don't know if they're going around doing the same thing in other people's videos who are not my complexion. I really don't know, so I don't want to make this a color issue. But it seems like they were having an issue with Americans or foreigners coming to their island. And the thing about it, it's like they were very insulting and they were threatening. They were threatening murder, basically. That's what they were actually doing, telling me that they're people who've wound up with knives in their sides, more or less being stabbed and not being found, which is kind of interesting because there have been a few people missing in Madeira of late. So I found that really crazy because I didn't say anything negative about the island, but it seems as though that their problem was me just daring to say that I wanted to come to visit or to live on the island. There was something wrong. They call that disrespectful. Disrespectful. Not that I said anything negative about the island, but it's disrespectful because I dare to want to come to live there. Anyway, what these clowns did not realize was if they had left the threats out and they were just expressing, I don't know, some objection to people coming to live on their island, I could actually understand what they were saying. Now, I am not coming to Madeira to try to take anyone's jobs, to take anyone's homes, to take anyone's women, or my wife is coming to take their men, or whatever. We're not coming there for any of that type of stuff. So I don't know what the threat was that they were feeling, but I think I could get to where they were going. Now, here's what happened. A few months back, like I said before, I went to one of the pages dealing with Madeira. It was Portugal, but I was specifying Madeira. And the thought crossed my mind, and I said, hey, I put it up on this site, and I said, hey, listen, with all of us Americans, all of us foreigners flooding into Portugal, are we considering or taking into consideration the local population, that we're aware of them, that we respect them, that we respect their culture, that we don't go in there with this entitled attitude that I sure don't have that, but I know a lot of Americans tend to have that type of entitled attitude. I am an American. Get out of my way. Stand out of my way. Do you know that I'm an American? You need to bow down and worship me or stand aside because we're Americans. It's an attitude I can't stand. And yes, I am an American citizen. I was born in the Caribbean, however, so I was born in a more conservative society. So the ugly American, I can't stand. I despise it. And just on a little side note, because I despise that type of American, the ugly, boisterous, pushy, aggressive American, because I can't stand that, I don't care for the guy that they called Donald Trump either. So in case you ever come to this channel and want to know what my opinions are about him, I don't like the guy for that very reason. He is the epitome. He is the embodiment of the ugly American, the pushy, loud, aggressive, we're Americans type of attitude. I cannot stand that. So my thing was, for the Americans that are flooding in, even though I don't get the impression that's the type of Americans that are coming over there, I was just putting out a little warning, and I was just simply saying that as we're rushing into this place, flying into this onto this beautiful island and everything, to consider the people who are there, to be cognizant, to be aware, to be respectful, to make sure that we don't go over there all of a sudden thinking we're here, we're taking over. Because when you do that type of stuff, human nature, people are going to feel threatened. And we know how it goes. I am a child of immigrants myself, and I know what it was like when my parents came to the Virgin Islands from other islands in the Caribbean, what they faced. Because one of the things about human nature, something I try not to fall into this trap, is that people and humans, part of our evolution, I guess, tend to feel threatened by something that looks different from them, something that comes from, or someone that comes from somewhere different from them, who are not a part of their tribe. The automatic, again, I guess it's because of our evolution about, our thing of fear, to run away from something we don't understand, or we stand up and we fight against it because we don't understand it. So we, instead of trying to understand, we're quicker to go ahead and fight against it or run away from it. So because that is human nature, I thought about it and I said, we just have to be very careful when we go there, that we don't go with this attitude of planting the American flag. We're taking over now. So that was one little fear that I had. And here is the reason why that jumps out. Because Americans, generally speaking, on a whole, are going to make more money than Portuguese people, the local everyday Portuguese person. I'm not saying that you don't have Portuguese people who make quite a bit of money, and I'm not saying that you don't have quite a bit of Americans who don't make a lot of money. But on average, an American is going to make more money than the average Portuguese. I think the minimum wage in Portugal is $6 or $7, whereby in the United States that's gone up. In a lot of places it's 10, 11, 12. Some places I guess $15 or whatever. So because of that, Americans are going to have more money in hand if they travel to a place like Portugal and they brought their savings with them, or they sold a home or something, they'll go over there. Well, what is going to happen, and what generally happens, is if a new market opens up, as is happening in Portugal, where there are Americans coming over and willing to spend top dollars for apartments, for rental cars, for whatever, well, capitalism is going to kick in, where the local people, the local business people, are going to say, well, hey, if this American wants to come over here and spend $2,000 for this apartment, that to a local Portuguese, I was going to have to more or less, just to keep it within, the boundaries of what people can afford, I would have been charging a local Portuguese person $1,000 for this, but an American wants to spend $2,000. Well, guess what? I'm going to go ahead and cater to the guy who wants to give me more money. So you have enough Americans coming over, putting that money out. All of a sudden, what's going to happen is the local population is going to be overlooked. They're not going to be considered anymore because a new market has been opened up that says, I will pay top dollars here. I'll pay whatever you want for this. Now, it happens here where I live in South Florida, and that is something that has happened over the past few years. Down the street, there was a sign when I moved down here from New York City, and there was a sign that said new homes starting from 400,000. This was less than 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. The sign said homes starting at 400,000 US dollars. In the course of a year and a half, that same sign has now changed to homes starting from 700,000. So basically, what transpired here, it's this: when the pandemic hit, a lot of New Yorkers, or a lot of people up north, and you have to understand here in the United States, for those of you who are from the United States, you will know this. For those of you who are Madeirans or Portuguese and you're looking at this video, this is basically what happened. People in New York City or in the northeast part of the United States, New Jersey, Connecticut, on average, they make more money than people in Florida. So when the pandemic hit, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people from New Jersey, Connecticut, it gave them the excuse, or I should say the opportunity, because a lot of people from New York would always say, hey, I want to move to Florida, I want to move to a place down south, and they would never really get around to doing it. But the pandemic forced a lot of people to say, you know what, I think this is the time, I need to get out of here. So they sold their homes, took that big chunk of money that they had, because now New York being a very expensive place, They're selling a house for $500,000, $800,000, and they come down here and find a house that's bigger, more spacious, and everything, going for $200,000. So it's like, wow, I can go to Florida with my $800,000 that I got from this home, and I can move to Florida and buy a $200,000 house that's two times the size of the one that I left in New York City. So guess what? They started coming down and they started paying top dollars for the homes that were down here. They started paying top dollars for the apartments that were down here. So you know what happened? All of a sudden, the rents in Florida started doing this. Home prices started doing this. And before you know it, the local Floridians who are here, who were making far less than the folks in New York City, now found themselves in a position where they can't afford the homes and they can't afford the apartments. See how that works? So that's similar to what happens in a place like Portugal and Madeira. Americans are coming over, they're making more money, they can afford more, they go over there, so something that may have been $1,000 a month, all of a sudden now it's $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month because someone is out there able and willing to pay that amount. So, because in a capitalistic society now you have these people, whether it's real estate, whether it's car dealerships, whether it's in the stores, are going to say, hey, there are people coming over and can afford to pay this amount, much more than what you, the local person, can pay. I am going to cater to them and I'm going to overlook you. So you know what that's going to cause now? Now the local population is going to sit there and like, wait a minute, what's going on? We can't afford anything in our own land. Hey, I have to leave. I have to move somewhere else where I can afford to live life because I can't afford where I came from anymore. Now we have a new population coming in and they're buying up all the property. They're buying all this up. They're doing this. They can afford that. And before you know it, your local population is transplanted. So because of this and being aware of this and being aware of being a history buff and knowing that these are the type of things that have caused tension between immigrant groups coming in and the local population. Before you know it, you have civil strife. Before you know it, you have a nationalistic leader who stands up and says, look, it's going to be Portugal first, or it's going to be Spain first, or it's going to be America first. And when you start hearing that, those immigrants are coming to try to take your job. Those immigrants are coming here to take your women. Those immigrants are coming over here and causing all the problems that we're having. And we need to get rid of them. And before you know it, those type of nationalist leaders or speakers, they start drawing certain people out of the shadows in that society who are either racist, homophobic, xenophobic. It starts drawing them out of the shadows. And when they come out now, they feel emboldened. Yeah, that's right. We don't want you here. We get out of here. We don't. And before you know it, you start having tensions. And you see, this is the type of stuff that's happening in places like Denmark. That's happening in places like Sweden. And the new population's coming in, and the next thing you know, we don't like them. We don't trust them. They're terrorists and whatever. Portugal at this point is not dealing with that type of stuff. And some people may think that I'm panicking, being paranoid. But again, just knowing how history goes, I know it can get to that point. And so it's the responsibility of the folks who are coming in to be respectful, to understand that is what's going on, to show some solidarity with the local population, to understand that, they're there. I mean, I didn't go to Portugal and see poverty and people starving and people sitting on the streets. And I didn't see a lot of that. If I saw any at all, I think I saw maybe one instance of something like that. But we just have to consider that we can't go over there and just think, well, hey, as long as my bread is buttered, I don't care about them. You're coming into their country. They're the host people, and you have to consider them. That's us. Of course, their government has an obligation to them also to make sure that their citizens are taken care of and they're not lost lost behind the dollar signs that are coming in from elsewhere and forgetting about their local citizens. And now, here's one of the reasons why I say I can relate to it. Not only can I relate to it here in South Florida, because we're dealing with that right now. That's another reason. One of the 5 million reasons we're trying to get out of here is because where we live, what we're going to have to pay in our new lease that's coming up. There are people here that they're in South Florida that their rent is going up $800 in a shot. In the years when I rented apartments, even when I had homes and so forth, if your rent went up, it may have been $25, after a year, $25 extra, maybe 50, maybe 75 the most. But nowadays it's going up $5, $6, $7, $800 in one shot. So just imagine you can barely afford an apartment for $1,500, and all of a sudden you look up, and now that apartment is $2,400. Your check didn't go up by that amount, but yet that's how much you're going to be looking at in terms of paying for stuff. So I've experienced it here in South Florida. Now, going to the Virgin Islands where I come from, and this might be even more relatable because it's an island. Where I come from, St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, right next door to St. Thomas is St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands. And that place has become, and it's 5 miles away from St. Thomas, that place has become how should I put it? It has become a haven for rich white folks. Because it's a U.S. territory, just like just like Madeira, the federal government still has a say in how things go. So we have our local government and we have a certain level of autonomy, but yet we're under the federal government. And if the federal government has a law that doesn't work well in the Caribbean, it doesn't matter. We still have to honor, or we still have to follow whatever that federal law is. So for example, when we had the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, our airport did not close. And it did not close down to foreigners coming in because the FAA, federal government, did not give us permission to close our airport. So here we are, a local population. There are people coming in with COVID from all over the world just coming in. Our local governor couldn't say, I'm shutting down the airport. We're not allowing any more foreigners in until we get this thing under control. No, because the federal government says, keep your airport open. Okay? So what has happened is this. Little St. John had ancestral people living there for years, living in homes that were passed down in the families down to the later generations. Well, all of a sudden, you had some very rich people who noticed this idyllic island. It's like, wow, it's an American island. Hey, I can go there without a passport. I don't have to go through anything. They use the US dollars. I can go down there. They go down, they fell in love with the place, and it's like, I think I want to buy some property here. So all of a sudden, they started buying up the property. Now, when they started buying up the property, it caused the value to rise, and now the taxes began to rise. So now a local family that had been there for 300 years all of a sudden realized that now their taxes have gone up exponentially because right next door, some rich person, generally white from the United States, came down and just bought up a piece of land for an exorbitant amount of money because they can afford to do it. So when they buy up that amount, that land with all that money, all of a sudden the property value goes up. So now your property value goes up. Great. But now your taxes also go up. Now you can't afford to pay your taxes. And when you can't afford to pay the taxes now, all of a sudden it's like, hey, you got to do something about this. You can't afford to pay it. So guess what? A lot of these families now had to go ahead and say, look, I've got to sell this land. I've got to sell this property that has been within my family for the past 200 years. So guess what? Now, this rich person over here tells his buddy about it. Hey, there's some land over here. You can come and get it. Next thing you know, they gobble up that land. They just keep gobbling up the land and gobbling up the land. And before you know it, you have walls to keep out the local population who've been living there all this time. And the next thing you know, they're moving in and they're taking over. They have the money. And before you know it, if you look at a brochure of St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands, you would look around and you would sometimes wonder if the population, the majority of the population, is actually black folks who've been living there for the past few hundred years. It's like, where did they go? You go down there to their bars, you go down there to different places. They're run by foreigners, white folks who come from the United States and elsewhere. I'm not knocking them for having their businesses. I'm not knocking them for doing what they can do in a capitalistic society. I'm definitely not knocking that. People need to enjoy their lives however they can. My only thing is the same exact thing when it comes down to the respect. I am not a militant by any chance. I don't go around, I hate white folks. That's not me at all. That's definitely not me. But what is happening down there in St. John, it's causing some friction. It's causing some tension as the local population are seeing themselves just being phased out, just being moved out, just disappearing into the shadows. And it's creating tensions and resentment because they're looking on and like, look, these people came down, bought all this up, they're buying up all the businesses, they're opening new businesses, and we're just not represented anymore. And that has created some problems down there. Lots of tension. When I go to these Facebook pages dealing with St. John, I look on there and I could see the back and forth and the bickering. It's almost like you can almost hear like kind of get out of here, you know, or you know, you guys are taking over and we don't want nothing that you want to build here and so forth. Other things are happening, like they're coming down there with their big yachts and they want to build a marina where they can have a safe haven for their yachts. But in building the marina, it kind of upsets the local ecological life and the marine life around, and the local people like, no, we don't want that big monstrosity here, and they're fighting against it. But again, because these people have the money, they have the power, their will is being imposed on the local population. So it creates some issues. So now, because I'm aware of that, and it happens in St. Thomas, where I'm from, to a certain degree also, and it happens in St. Croix, our sister island. That's St. Croix is the third island within the Virgin Islands chain. There's 4 of them, and 4 U.S. Virgin Islands. Of course, there's also the British Virgin Islands. And in St. Croix, it caused so much problems back in the 70s to the point where it led to a very, very, very tragic incident that is still mentioned to this very day. So because of that, I haven't moved to Madeira as yet, but I speak on this because it's something that I hope that if anyone is watching this video, you stumble into this video. Yes, I'm not talking about the touristy and where can you go in Madeira and look at this and look at that. I'm not doing all that right now. This is a guy in front of a camera talking to you, and I know there are Madeirans who are listening in right now, and they may be like, yeah, you're right, you know, and so forth. And I'm not giving anyone any bright ideas to go out there and start telling Americans to go back home and we don't want you here and so forth. I'm definitely not saying that. I am an American citizen, so of course I want to feel like I'm welcome, and I sure felt like I was welcome when I went there. But the fact that we had these trolls or these people popping in who maybe just be some young punks running around the place with nothing else better to do, but perhaps they do fear that people are going to come in and change their culture. You know, people are going to come in and take over and phase them out. And there's this human tendency to feel fearful when you think that your way of life or your resources or whatever is being gobbled up by others coming from elsewhere. So human nature is to fight back, is to get violent, you know, and we don't want it to get to that point. Portugal has been rather peaceful so far. Madeira has been rather peaceful. I haven't really heard anything, but I definitely do not want to see that country become another Denmark. Beautiful country, progressive country, but we now hear they have these restrictive rules on immigration. You have some nationalist groups that have popped up and are now trying to tell people of Middle Eastern descent to get out of their country. We don't want you here. They're labeling certain communities ghettos, and they're trying to pay people to leave the country. Don't want to see turn into that. Don't want to see turn into Sweden. You know, don't want to see turn into those other places. And before you know it, then that population becomes, the incoming population comes in. Now all of a sudden they feel they're not welcome. They're marginalized. They're angry. They don't have access to jobs. They're discriminated against. And the next thing you know, there's frustrations and a bomb goes off somewhere. And then there's justification and everything just goes haywire after that. So we're trying to avoid such situations. So this is just something for people to consider. So in all the excitement of people talking about that they're going to Madeira and that they're doing their various things and so forth, you know, you just have to just make sure you put that into consideration, or to think about these type of things, that when you go there, you're just respectful to the people. You may have the money to do certain things, but I wouldn't suggest you go over there beating your chest and I'm an American and I want you to know that we have it all and we're the best and so forth. I can just tell that the Portuguese people and Europeans just don't care for Americans, and that attitude that they come over there with the big bad American, bow down and worship me, step out of my way. And as I said before, I don't like that guy, Trump. And if you can remember, when he was in office, he went to Europe, and I think it was at a G7 summit, and he pushes his way to the front, and he like pushes everybody out of the way, pulls up his shirt. I'm an American. I need to stand to the front. I don't care for that. I don't like that. I don't want to be one of those people. I am not one of those people, I should say. And I definitely won't be starting that now. But there may be some among us who may go there. At least from the Americans I've dealt with and so forth, it looks like they just want to get away from that kind of craziness here in this country to go somewhere else where that is not something that's in vogue like it is over here. Because if you've been watching the news right now, you tend to know that that ugly American is trending now. It's mainstream. It's like in your face. Get out of here. America first. We're the best. It's trending. It's becoming the norm here now. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. So I think a lot of the Americans who are going there, it seems like it's a lot of people from California, which is a state that is rather progressive. They don't like that guy either. And I would think that most of these people are very cognizant and aware and just don't have that ugly American attitude. So it's just best to just go and blend in, just be like everyone else, be respectful to the people. I mean, I can't tell anyone what to do with their lives and so forth. It's just my suggestion to make sure that we don't see Portugal turning into other places where there's tension between incoming populations and local populations. Anyway, I've really said a lot. I hope you can come in, you can comment, you can let me know what you think about what I had to say. You may not agree with what I'm saying. That's perfectly all right. If you agree, you can come in. If you disagree, you can come in and you can put your comments in. You can share this video also. Anyway, let me go ahead and head on out. I could see I'm getting some messages here. So I just had to put this video together real quick. Wow, 32 minutes. Why does it always fly past 30 minutes when I'm talking? Sorry, I didn't know I was doing all this talking, but hopefully I kept your interest and I hope it was engaging, and I would love to hear from you. Okay, so you can dislike if you want to. Again, please subscribe, share it, and it would be fantastic, okay? Anyway, you guys take care. Thank you again for tuning in to Mad About Madeira. The videos are not always going to be like this. This is just us talking from here. Hopefully when we get over there, be a little bit more professional looking, like I did a few videos back when I did all the music and videos and so forth. But right now I'm just talking to you guys, okay? So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it, all right? You guys have a great day wherever you may be if it's daytime. Have a great night wherever you may be if it's nighttime. Thank you for tuning in. Until the next time, bye.